For 20 years I prayed, hoped, and went through countless treatments to have a child. When I finally gave birth to our miracle baby, I thought our happiness was complete. But the moment my husband laid eyes on our son, his first words left me broken. Subscribe to Stories Unfolded for more powerful stories of love, betrayal, and unexpected twists. You won't believe what happened next. For 2 decades, I carried the weight of unfulfilled dreams, endless doctor visits, and silent prayers, whispered into the night. My husband Mark and I had longed for a child from the moment we got married. We had imagined what our family would look like, planned names, and even decorated a nursery years before we ever had a reason to. But year after year, our hopes were crushed. At first, we thought it was just bad luck, a delay in timing. But as months turned into years, we sought medical advice. I still remember the devastation of sitting in a sterile doctor's office as we were told that my chances of conceiving naturally were slim to none. Mark held my hand as I cried that day, whispering promises that we would keep fighting, that we would do whatever it took. And we did. We tried everything. IVF, hormone treatments, dietary changes, even acupuncture, anything that carried even the smallest chance of success. Each failed round of IVF felt like a funeral for a child we never got to meet. The emotional toll was unbearable, but the love Mark and I shared held us together. There were moments when I thought about giving up, when I felt guilty for holding Mark back from having a family. But he always reassured me, saying, "We're in this together, no matter what." Then, one day, after almost 2 decades of heartache, something happened. Something I had long stopped believing was possible. I was pregnant. When the pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, I could hardly breathe. I stared at it, willing myself to believe it was real. When I told Mark, he laughed in disbelief before pulling me into the tightest hug, tears streaming down his face. "This is it," he whispered. "Our miracle." The pregnancy wasn't easy. My body, having spent so many years without carrying a child, struggled. There were complications, constant hospital visits, and moments where I feared I would lose the baby before I ever got to hold him. But through it all, I kept telling myself, this is worth it. This is what we've been waiting for. And finally, after 38 weeks of waiting, of dreaming, of enduring pain and fear, our son, Noah, was born. I thought that moment would be nothing but happiness. I thought all the years of struggle would be worth it once I saw Mark hold his son. But instead, my husband's first words after seeing our baby turned my joy into heartbreak. I was still weak from labor, my body aching, but all I cared about was holding Noah in my arms. He was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, soft brown curls, and the most delicate little face. Mark stood beside me, looking down at our baby for the first time. I expected him to cry, to smile, to whisper words of love to our newborn. Instead, he frowned. His expression twisted into something I couldn't quite place. Confusion, doubt, even suspicion. Then, in a voice so low I almost didn't hear him, he said, "Are you sure this one's mine?" My heart stopped. I turned my head, my breath catching in my throat. "What did you just say?" Mark's jaw clenched as he looked at Noah again. He doesn't look like me." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. After everything we had been through, 20 years of struggle, of heartbreak, of fighting for this moment, his first thought wasn't love, wasn't gratitude. It was doubt. I stared at Mark, unable to process what I had just heard. The pain of labor still coursed through my body, but nothing compared to the sharp stab in my heart. Noah was barely an hour old, swaddled in a soft blue blanket, sleeping peacefully in my arms, the miracle we had waited 20 years for. And yet, instead of the joy I had expected, the man who had once promised to stand by me, no matter what, was looking at his own son with suspicion. "Mark," I whispered, my voice shaky, "what did you just say?" His eyes flickered to mine, but instead of softening, they hardened. I said, "Are you sure he's mine?" The room felt like it was spinning. My hands instinctively tightened around Noah, as if shielding him from the words that had just shattered my heart. "How dare you?" I hissed, barely recognizing my own voice. Mark ran a hand through his hair, pacing at the edge of the hospital bed. I don't know, okay? I'm just saying. He doesn't look like me, Anna." I could feel the tears building behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Do you hear yourself?" I choked out. "After everything we've been through, you think I would, what? Cheat on you? Get pregnant with someone else's baby?" Mark didn't answer right away. He just kept pacing, his hands on his hips, as if struggling with something. "I don't know what to think," he finally muttered. I thought he'd look more like me." I let out a bitter laugh, one that was almost hysterical in its pain. "Because babies always come out looking like exact copies of their fathers, right?" I snapped. "Or maybe, just maybe, after 20 years of waiting, the first thing you should have said was, 'Thank you,' or 'He's beautiful,' or 'I love you,' instead of accusing me of something so disgusting I can't even believe we're having this conversation." Mark flinched, as if my words had finally reached him, but I was too angry to stop. I spent years injecting myself with hormones, going through procedures that left me physically and emotionally broken. I watched pregnancy tests come back negative over and over again. I fought for this baby, Mark, and so did you. And now that he's finally here, you're standing there acting like I betrayed you?" Silence filled the room. For the first time since his accusation, Mark's face faltered. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He looked at Noah again, this time with something resembling doubt in himself rather than me. I don't know what's wrong with me," he admitted, his voice quieter now. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Anna. I swear. I think I just panicked." I swallowed the lump in my throat, my body shaking. "Panicked?" I echoed. "About what, Mark? That the child we've been waiting for might actually be real? That he's here, and that means no more waiting, no more hoping. It means you actually have to be a father now?" Mark exhaled, rubbing his temples. "I don't know," he whispered. "I don't know what's wrong with me." I shook my head in disbelief. "You need to leave." His head snapped up. "What?" "You need to leave," I repeated, my voice unwavering this time. "I just gave birth. I am exhausted, and I will not sit here and let you take this moment away from me with your doubts. Go. Think about what you just said, and if you ever want to be in this baby's life, I suggest you figure out real fast whether or not you're going to act like his father." Mark hesitated for a long moment, but then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the hospital room. And the moment he was gone, I broke down sobbing. For the next 2 days in the hospital, Mark barely visited. He called once, sounding hesitant, asking if I was okay, but I kept our conversations short. The truth was, I didn't know how to move forward. The man I had loved for so many years, The man who had held my hand through every failed pregnancy test had doubted me in the moment I needed him most. I felt betrayed. I felt alone. And worst of all, I didn't know if I could ever forgive him. Linda, my mother-in-law, was the one who finally stepped in. She arrived at the hospital on the third day, bringing me fresh clothes and homemade soup. She kissed Noah's forehead and whispered, "You are so loved, little one," before turning to me with a knowing look. "Anna," she said gently, sitting beside me, "tell me what happened with Mark." I hesitated, but then the words just came tumbling out. The accusation. The way he looked at Noah. The way he didn't look at me. Linda's face darkened. "I'm going to kill him," she muttered under her breath. I let out a small, broken laugh. "You and me both." She sighed, rubbing my hand. "I think he's scared, sweetheart." I shook my head. "That doesn't excuse what he said." "No, it doesn't," she agreed. "But I know my son, and I think the weight of finally getting what he wanted has scared him more than he expected. Maybe deep down, he convinced himself this was never going to happen for you two. And now that it has, he doesn't know how to handle it." I swallowed, looking down at Noah's tiny sleeping form. "So what do I do?" Linda squeezed my hand. "That's up to you. But he needs to earn your forgiveness, Anna. And he needs to prove to you that he's ready to be a father. Don't let him get away with this just because you love him." When Mark finally showed up at the hospital later that evening, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red, his hands shoved into his pockets. "I know I don't deserve to be here," he said before I could speak, "but I need to tell you something." I remained silent, waiting. "I messed up," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I let my fears, my own doubts, ruin the biggest moment of our lives, and I hate myself for it." I stayed quiet, watching him. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he continued, "but I'm going to spend every day proving to you that I'm the father Noah deserves. If that means taking a paternity test to give you peace of mind, I'll do it. If that means going to therapy to figure out why I reacted the way I did, I'll do that too. I just want my family." Tears welled in my eyes. "You broke my heart, Mark," I admitted. "You took the happiest moment of my life and turned it into something painful. I don't know how to just move past that." "I don't expect you to," he whispered. "But I'm begging you to give me the chance to make it right." I looked down at Noah, who had woken up, his tiny fingers curling around mine. And for the first time since Mark's betrayal, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe he could fix this. Maybe. Some betrayals cut deeper than words can express. Mark's doubt shook the very foundation of our marriage, but his willingness to fight for our family gave me hope. Trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. But sometimes, if the love is strong enough, it can be rebuilt. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories Unfolded. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And remember, love is not just about staying, it's about choosing each other every single day.